Now we're going to start the engage. I'm on page 55 of your little atheist book, and you are not talking. Thank you. First question says this: how would you respond to a relativist? So a relativist is one that says that there's no truth or there's no such thing as absolute truth and everything is relative. So who says there are no such things as absolute morals because our views and behaviors change all the time? Yes.
Anyway, you can hold up.
We talked about this earlier in the year. Yeah. Yes, Eric. Yeah. Just because our understanding of it or belief in it doesn't mean that the standard changes.
Oh, is this the one where it was talking about math? Like, just because you understand 2 + 2 is 4? Or, like, if you didn't understand it and you understood it to be 2 + 2 = 5 doesn't change that that's wrong?
Yeah.
Because mathematical laws are the same regardless.
Yeah. So changing behaviors don't change the standard any more than speeding motorists change the speed limit. The speed limit is what the speed limit is. How fast you drive doesn't change that. It's still the standard. Well, 5 overs.
5 over is not that bad.
I know.
That's okay.
When you say speed limit,
Do you know what Josh is talking?
5 year bind in your mind.
No, not so much that. He doesn't really care about speed that much. It's something. So I was driving out in West Omaha and I went by my kid's pediatrician's office and I thought and it's not too far from where he patrols, and I thought, I wonder what would happen if he pulled Dr. K over. And I said that to him, and he said, Mom, he's not driving the kind of car I'm looking for.
No,
and they really do. They really, like, if you have a tail light out or you, like, they can sense. They've got these spidey sense. He's like, that one's not right. And he told me about it. And like, it was like marijuana smoke was coming out the car and the drugs in there. He just knew based on the car. So he doesn't really care about speeding as much. He's trying to get bad guys off the street. But yeah, somewhere around 10 and over.
But also, well, yeah, like, and that's the thing that my dad always tells me is, like, he's always like, okay, you have to obey the law. But if you're going to speed, you have to do it, like, safely, because they're not going to, most, like, 8 times out of 10, they're not going to pull you over just for speeding. It's if you're being reckless in speeding. If you're weaving or if you're, if it's congested. But, like, if it's just, let's say it's open 75 and you're going 80, they're probably not going to stop you because there's no problem. But if it's like you're heading into Omaha and you're getting, like, over by L Street and you're going, like, 90, yeah, they're going to pull you for that.
Fair. Okay. So, number 2. How would you respond to a relativist who says morality is relative because people's historical and cultural perceptions have changed throughout time? Yes. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. You would say, like, just because cultures, or isn't it say the one that, like, just because how the, like, moral is perceived or interpreted or used or whatever doesn't change the fact that there is a moral.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes.
There's also, like, an interpretation of it. Like how we talked about how in certain cultures it's wrong to eat this animal, whereas here it doesn't matter. Like, the same intentions are the same, just how you interpret it.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like what the moral is, like, don't eat grandma, that's the moral.
Yeah,
but how we interpret it is differently because, Hindus interpret it, cow is grandma, so don't eat the cow. We interpret it as grandma's grandma, don't eat grandma.
It's great.
Did you not read the book? So morals don't change. change. It's the perception of the moral situation that changes. For example, is slavery wrong?
Yes.
100%. It was wrong even when it was going on in our country, and
Trick question.
has going on in other countries even as we speak. It wasn't okay just because we did that. It was still morally wrong. And then our understanding, like the Salem witch trials, right? That were fraudulent, right? We understood that. We understand now that that isn't what happened. So, yeah. How would you respond to a relativist who says says disagreement over moral dilemmas proves morality is relative?
If you have a disagreement, you're disagreeing because you think that's wrong, and you have a perception of what right is.
Good, yeah. So even if knowing what the right decision is hard, the moral law still exists. Indeed, the quandary itself implies the moral law. That you are debating it implies the moral law. So it's just the disagreement is proof of the moral law. Number 4. How would you respond to a relativist who says the fact that different cultures have different practices means that they have different values?
This is the grandma one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the moral value is absolute. How it's practiced is relative. There are certain countries where it is offensive for someone to show the bottom of their foot. So if you, and I can't actually do it with my knees, but if you put your leg, you cross your legs, and your foot is up, that would be offensive. It's offensive in many countries, especially countries that eat with their hands, with your left hand. And I didn't realize that I don't think I realized that the first 2 times I went to Zambia. And I don't know who I was offending, and I felt so bad. And even, I'm so left-handed that I had to like remind myself to use my right hand. And so it isn't that belief that is at stake. It is honoring people, living. The reason once I realized that, I wasn't like, oh, that's stupid. I'll choose my left hand. I wanted to honor. That's the moral principle, not the hand that you're eating with, or how we greet one another, right? In our country, we generally shake hands, right? A lot of countries, you hug or you kiss on both cheeks and things like that, and it isn't. That's not a moral issue. That's just a custom. When we lived in Korea. My grandmother lived with us a number of times, but especially when we went to Korea. She came with us to Korea, and she came with us to Brussels. And it's my mother's mother. And Missy was 3 weeks old when we moved to Korea. My mom, I can't even. I never heard her complain. Even though my dad came home, he had orders here, orders here, orders here, orders here, and then he came home and he said, it's Korea, and she went into labor that night. And my dad had to leave immediately for Korea. And so she took 4 girls, the youngest one being 3 weeks old, from New Jersey to Seoul, South Korea on her own. Now, packing up the house and all that, she had help with that because he was a general by that time, so we had guys that would help with that. But I just don't. And she never complained. She never complained, right? But we took my grandmother to Korea so that she could help babysit. So that what?
Yeah,
I call
That we took my grandmother
Yeah.
to Korea? Yeah, we took my grandmother to Korea so that she could babysit. But what we didn't understand was 2 things. First of all, we would have a cook, a houseboy, and a maid full time. So, and they loved Missy. And so we have so many pictures, so many home movies of Missy on their back and them playing with Missy. And we didn't need our grandmother. And then the other thing we didn't. She played the piano at my parents' parties. That was important. But the other thing that they didn't calculate is that the elderly are revered in Asian countries, right? The older you are, the oldest person at the party is the most honored person, not the most high-ranking person. It's the oldest. So they went to a ton of parties, especially when we were overseas. And my grandmother was not only invited, she was put in the seat of honor at that party. So she wasn't babysitting us. Cha-Cha would stay late and babysit us. Our houseboy would do that. So I know I had a weird childhood. But Cha-Cha actually is. My parents brought Cha-Cha to. That was his name. That was his nickname. Brought him to the United States. Also brought our cook to the United States. He passed away. He lived right near us. And he passed away 7 years ago. But Cha-Cha opened a tailoring business in McLean, Virginia, and he did really well. And I think he's still around. My sister saw him the last time she went to DC. So, yeah.
Another cook did.
So anyway, the practices are different. The values are the same. How would you respond to a relativist who says moral disagreements or differences of opinion, like in abortion, prove morality to be relative? Yes.
Because, like, for example, with abortion, it isn't that, like, the moral of killing people is wrong, but the question isn't whether or not killing people is wrong, it's whether or not it's like a baby or not. So the moral remains the same regardless of, again, how you perceive it.
It's how you define humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that same person that says it's okay to take life in the womb
Wouldn't be so happy if you tried to kill them.
if the baby was born and then killed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in most cases where there's severe disagreement, like abortion, like the death penalty, each side takes an absolute position, which would kind of indicate that would indicate that they believe in an absolute moral law. They just have a different agreement on specific issues. But they're what am I trying to say? They're holding up the moral law by the very disagreement. They just have different ideas of what's right and what's wrong. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got the rest of the hour to study for your test.
We're not going to do number 6.
We're not doing 6, 7.
Oh. Let me look at it.
Well, 7 and 8 we wouldn't do, but 6 we would.
Oh, okay. So what would you say to a Darwinist who states that morality is materially and genetically determined?
Prove it.
No. Also,
Where is
it's
genetics?
Chemics.
It's not chemical, but
Okay,
prove it.
so that's a
Show me.
science question. You have to have evidence for that, right? Where's the evidence of that? They're just saying that it's materially and genetically determined because that's what they want it to be. But there's no scientific evidence for that.
Also, like your emotions and stuff. I think chemicals. It's not just compounds. You can't define it.
Well, I wouldn't say emotions. Emotions is a lot.
Well, like your
Like
moral
serotonin.
values is what I mean.
Yeah.
And it gives them the I mean I think it
Yeah,
was,
your
I think we
thoughts.
talked
It's
about
not
this.
something tangible.
I think we talked yeah, we did talk about this in this that many scientists who are atheists because they don't want there to be a God because they don't want a God to tell them that they can't sleep whoever they want to sleep with,
Yeah.
right? So that's what this is. That's why they have this idea as well. Okay, we're done with that. Go ahead and study for your test,
I'm gonna
please. Thank you.
stop it or pause it.
I don't believe in it.
I'm gonna stop it or pause it.
Whatever I want.
Ms. Keezer, you want me to stop it or pause it?
Just